where you would like to be or beyond that point. It has to be someone who's already gone through something similar of what you have gone through. So just as an example, I give an example in the book where I'm sitting in one of my mentor's offices. And this guy, I mean, you know, he has a company that grosses several $100 million a year. Okay, he's been at this for a long time. He's many years my senior. And this particular day, I mean, I was going through a pretty tough period with one of my companies a while back. And he kind of looks at me and he smiles, and he tells me about his experience in the Gauntlet, which is the Gauntlet is one of the stages of entrepreneurship I cover in the book. And I tell you something, after he told me this story, I thought, wow, that's actually a lot worse than what I'm going through. And then he went on to give me advice. He goes, now, here's what I think you need to do, right? So instead of me sitting there trying to figure it out on my own, I have someone who had already been through it who could say, okay, now, do this, and do this. And that's what I want this book to be for the beginning entrepreneur and the struggling entrepreneur, that mentor that you need. Even though the title is Presidents, Pilots, and Entrepreneurs, once I get past the introduction, I no longer talk about presidents or pilots. It's all about entrepreneurs. I use that title in the introduction of the book to really talk about the greatness of entrepreneurs and my love for entrepreneurs, because I don't think entrepreneurs get that level of respect that they need until they hit it big. Then everyone calls them a genius. Oh, he did it overnight and this and that. But then everyone else, you know, the mom and pop shop on the corner, the loan consultant with the laptop dream, everyone tells him, go get a job. He hits big. Oh, he's a genius, right? So the introduction is a shot in the arm to the entrepreneur. And then I get to chapter 1 and I bring them back down to earth and say, okay, are you really an entrepreneur? Let's take that test right now. So until we go through the stages of entrepreneurship, that nostalgia phase, what I refer to as the gauntlet, then making a choice between heading to what I refer to as the player's lounge and choosing what I call acceptable stagnation. And then, you know, I cover subjects such as, partner and how to go about partnering. But what I really do in this book, where I really take it to a different level, is, you know, you read a lot of books that says, oh, I'm a great entrepreneur, I did all these wonderful things. Oh, I'm so smart. Oh, I'm so wonderful. Yeah, but you know, you made a lot of mistakes before you became Mr. That's what I want to know about. I don't want to know just about your successes. I'm only going to learn, I'm truly with your mistakes. So at the end of each chapter, I have a section called In Hindsight. And In Hindsight talks about my own experience or the experience of other entrepreneurs that I know in relation to the subject of that chapter. And I reveal, what I would consider some pretty embarrassing stuff, some pretty bad decisions that I made, but then how I bounced back.
And it's really great you talk about that, because I feel the exact same way. I feel like we live in this really hyped media where they're portraying entrepreneurs as only their successes, right? When really, like you said, we should be focusing on their failures, because that's what made them great entrepreneurs. I mean, sure, you know, a couple of them got lucky early on and hit the big one, but those are what? I mean, at best, half of a percent, you know? I mean, a lot of these guys who become successful over time, I mean, they've taken their lickings, you know, and I feel like you said, that's really where we learn to be better entrepreneurs, is to learn from each other's failures.
Well, not only, even the ones that, even the ones that you say got lucky, if you really, you know, dig deep down into their backgrounds, you know, they have to go through the same phase. Everyone goes through the various stages of entrepreneurship that I talk about in the book. Everyone, without exception. Now, you know, some, it's a little more difficult for some than others. But I mean, even.
But I think something like a Facebook, for example, right? I mean, whatever Zuckerberg's going to tell you, never in his wildest dreams did he think that Facebook would one day be responsible for uprising, in Arab countries. I mean, here's a guy, right, geek guy in college, say, you know what? How about we create a networking social page for people at Harvard, just at Harvard, right? So he just works on that, and he just rode the wave. I mean, really worked his butt off. Great developer, obviously, and was able to scale it to what it is today. But that's what I mean. That's what I mean by luck. Is sometimes when you're a young entrepreneur, you don't know it, but you just kind of fall on the right wave, And if you're smart and you work hard, well, you can ride that wave. Because sometimes as an entrepreneur, hard work and dedication is not enough. I mean, luck and timing plays a huge part into it. I mean, I've had some failures in my life where I worked just as hard and it was just as dedicated as when I was with my successes, but it ended up being a failure because my timing was off. Mm-hmm. And it is what it is, and that's a very difficult lesson for some entrepreneurs to learn.
I think too, it has to do with, and that's why the title is, Lessons from the Trenches for the Everyday, the subtitle, Lessons from the Trenches for the Everyday Entrepreneur. Who's the everyday entrepreneur? The guy or gal with a laptop and a drink, right? The loan consultant, the accountant, the attorney, anyone who's decided, to cut the apron strings from a job, to pursue what I call the greater vision of themselves, that I like to call it, and that's really who the book was written for. Basically, I said, because I'm part of that target audience, right? What book would I like to have read when I first started? That's the way I approached it, right? I mean, when I first started, I did all the things you typically do. You research the type of corporation, file the paperwork, separate personal accounting from business accounting, the mechanics.
Yes.
The mechanics. But the entrepreneur, to look at it in just that way is like looking at a body without a soul, right? It's just a carcass, right? What I want to do is entrepreneurship. So now that I have the data sitting in front of me, now it's on me. I have to make a decision. How do I make that decision? Come into play. Because great entrepreneurs, look at every one of them. They all say the same thing. You need to learn how to trust your gut and move based on information, even if you don't have all the information that you need, right? You still have to move. So I have an entire chapter that I cover on that topic alone. This gets to the heart and soul of the entrepreneur. Take information from your advisors, look at the data, but then we need to trust our gut. We need to move forward. And once we make that decision and we move forward, we keep moving. We don't stop. We don't second guess. If there's a need to pivot, then we pivot. So these are some of the, this is how I approach this book.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how great entrepreneurs know their strengths and know their weaknesses, and how they're able to put the successful teams in place needed to be successful. Because obviously we're not good at everything, and we need to know and recognize our weaknesses and find the right partners to complement us.